Hi, this is Reshmi, and today we are with Sangeeta, and she'll tell us more about herself. We are here to talk about the importance of mental health. So, Sangeeta, can you please tell us something about what you do and what is the importance of mental health in a person's life?
Sure. Thank you, Rashmi, for inviting me for this program, Hello
Yeah,
Zindagi.
yeah, thank you.
And it's my pleasure to be here and share my thoughts. So, I actually represent the organization called You Are Happiness, and we are providing services for mental health well being, in which we provide mind therapy, counseling, and coaching. And what primarily I deal with most of the cases is of all age groups, starting from children to adolescents to adults and people with old age.
Yeah.
Any kind of life situation which is impacting them emotionally and psychologically. So that is something which is the most common issue that we have in our society. Now, if you really look at in different strata of our society, uh, people are having mental health issues. However, they are not talking about it. So I'm sure today's conversation with you in this program can open up that particular perspective on how important it is.
Yeah. So before we go there, I just wanted to understand the difference between psychiatrist and a psychologist. Now, people do not really know the difference. You know, they would say, I am seeing a psychiatrist, I am seeing a psychologist. So I don't think the difference is actually.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful question. Most often, people don't know the difference. However, if you look at the psychiatrist has done his MBBS and taken psychiatry as a stream and they have specialized. In psychiatry, what happens is people are prescribed medicines, mostly antidepressants or based on the clinical condition. However, when we look at a psychologist goes through a lot of intensive training on how to deal with people's mind and their thought process. And what a psychologist does is he or she uses mind as a medicine. So they are fundamentally different because a psychiatrist would say that, hey, you have to have these tablets and for a certain period of time. However, that is not a permanent solution because I can't take medicines all my life. And I need to really look at life skills, how to deal with the issues that I have. And that is where a psychologist comes into picture, where we use mind therapy as a medium. If it is required, we do counseling. If it is required, we use a combination of both because most often people need a combination of both. So to sum it up, a psychiatrist deal with his or her patient with medicines by prescribing medicines. A psychologist actually deals with the person's mind and support the client in using his mind as the biggest medicine.
Okay.
Yes.
So talking about mental health, now we have some disturbing statistics here.
Yes.
Like according to a study conducted by World Health Organization, India is the most depressed country in the world.
Yes.
Now, isn't this, I mean, I can't believe this because, you know, we give a lot of importance to staying together, family and family values and culture and all that. I mean, India is known for its rich culture and all. Why is it that India is really the most depressing country in the world? I mean, why are people so depressed?
Though we have a lot of significance for family and culture, which is one of the great things about our country, however, we are conservative when it comes to mental health education and mental health awareness. So, if suppose for somebody is dealing with a depression or an anxiety, right? If the person goes and tells his family that I am having a concern with regard to my mental health, people see it as a taboo to go and seek a professional support. Because the understanding most people have is if there is a mental well-being concern, that means maybe you're mad. So there's a lot of generalization in an understanding, and there's a lot of taboo. And I think we as a country, we are very, very far away from actually accepting that it is mental health is equally important as physical health. So I may be working out, taking my vitamins, taking my enough water, but if I am not going to deal with what is happening in my heart and in my head, right, I cannot be healthy.
Because 300 million people are said to be suffering from depression in the entire world.
Yes.
Now, suppose, I feel dizzy or I'd have a blood pressure issue, then I actually run to the doctor and actually get the doctor prescribes a battery of tests and all that. So, when it comes to mental health, suppose I'm not feeling very good about myself, or probably, I feel like I should be taking the extreme step. I don't feel like I have to actually go and seek professional help, because do you think there are actually, even in these corporate hospitals which prescribe, they give you a package saying that you could do a blood test for this, and we are giving you a package, but they do not include, mental health. So, do you think it's time that we actually,
True, absolutely. In fact, when I look at the psychiatrists or psychologists, for a person dealing with a mental health issue, they need to take support of both if required.
Yeah.
Sometimes in extreme cases of depression or extreme cases of anxiety, when it has completely moved to a clinical side, for them, it is very important for a short period of time to take medication. However, for long-term sustainable results, they need hand-holding from a psychologist.
Yeah.
And as you said very rightly, yes, people would go to any extent for health checkups, but not for mental checkups. Right? Even for somebody to come and see a counselor, they know that something is just not right, and slowly the awareness is getting built up. But I still feel, in my experience of 20 years, I've seen that people still have a taboo. They will speak to you on the phone and they'll say, I have a problem, but they don't want to visit your office. They're still very shy.
Yeah.
And sometimes somebody must have spoken to me an year back and they come and visit me after an year. Right? And they say, Sangeeta, do you remember I had spoken to you an year back? So
it takes them time to accept it also, probably.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would say that smart people, if they see that there is a concern, and especially teenagers and people from 10 to 19 years, parents should really watch out what's happening, because that's the peak time that you see maximum cases of depression and anxiety, because of the different levels of life challenges that they deal with during this age period, right? And if an adult is seeing that, if a parent is saying, yes, a child is behaving differently or a teenager is behaving differently, most of the teenagers, 14 to 19, go through depression. However, parents are not willing to take their children to a psychologist to see what's happening with my child. So, surprising thing, what I see, I may be sounding a little sarcastic, that people are willing to spend money on other things, but when it comes to paying for the services, and they say, wow, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's not about affordability, it's about the value that you give to the services, because it's working with the people's mind and also the child's life.
Yeah.
Because if this percolates into adulthood, and it is very, very important for them to have a very fulfilling life. And if I have an emotional challenge, and if I have a mental well-being issue, so as I grow as an adult, it shows up in your relationships.
Yeah.
It shows up in your marriages, and that's why divorce rate is going very high. So it is like a chain reaction if it is not addressed when they are young. And I think that is where parents should take a step forward and say, okay, this is an area where it is very important to invest and see what can be done.
See, because we have this general tendency of putting up with it, be it a child being bullied at school,
Correct.
or a woman suffering at the hands of her husband.
Correct.
She just silently endures it. And even workplace, for that matter, if
Correct.
she's, if a particular person is feeling harassed at work by his boss or colleague or whatever. So, we have that tendency to just put up with it and say, I will manage.
Absolutely.
I mean, the person knows that, you know, he's mentally disturbed, but he doesn't want to seek help. Like you said, is it because of the fear of acceptance that a person is actually mentally disturbed? Could that be one of the reasons?
Yes, Rashmi, what you're saying is very, very apt when we are talking about this topic. We also, India as a society is very repressive, okay? Because we don't believe in expressing if I am dealing with a concern, especially emotional concerns, because we believe that we need to tolerate.
Yeah.
And we also have this attitude, chalta hai, everybody has a problem.
Right.
Right? Is this problem big enough to go and seek a professional support?
Yeah.
So, what happens is when you're internalizing so many emotional challenges that's happening, that slowly leads to depression, anxiety, because you're not dealing with it. So, it's like a volcano which is building in you. Right. So yes, people think, okay, initially people think, I think I can deal with it over a period of time. It will be okay. But then, is right. If I am not, and when I know that I'm not able to deal with it, should I go and seek a professional support? Even then, people don't go, and that is where breakdowns happen. That is where we are seeing the rate of suicide rate is so high. And something very alarming, if you see, Rishmi, in India, in our society, we have one mental health support professional available for 1 lakh people.
Oh. That's depressing enough.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Imagine. Right. And we are talking about such an important area of our life, that is mental wealth, well-being, and you see that there's scarcity of professionals.
Yeah.
It's not only scarcity, but also people's view as to how important it is.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that awareness is so important, and it should start in school. It should start in colleges.
I mean, I don't think any school or college has, dedicated psychologists.
Absolutely. Recently, I was visiting a school with a parent for her child, and there was a counselor in the school. I didn't know how deep work she would do. Right? In some cases, I'm sure she must be doing her best, but in some cases, you really need that sustainable intervention for a child to really understand what's happening with the child. Not only that, you see a lot of self-harm cases.
Yeah. I mean, these extreme pressures drive you to suicide.
Yes, extreme pressures. Parents expecting a lot from you, right? Parents want you to be in a certain way. And it is mandate that you have to top the school or top your class, or you have to prepare yourself for the competition. So as a society also, there's a lot of focus on competition and not excellence.
Correct. Yeah.
Because I see a lot of cases, and I had one of the client coming in from outside Hyderabad. She came with a daughter for self-help. So she said, she is actually causing self-harm. What is happening to my daughter who's 14-year-old?
Yeah.
So it's alarming. So why would a person do self-harm? They do it because they feel nobody can understand them. They're helpless. All right. My mom thinks I'm in a certain way, and whatever I say, she doesn't take it seriously. If I'm telling my mom I'm depressed, she laughs at it. Another reason for not studying.
Yeah, depression is taken very lightly.
Yes,
I know.
Absolutely.
No, because family is the cushion, it's the comfort zone you go to.
Yes.
When you're feeling low. Suppose I feel low, I call my mom and I get that kind of support from her.
Correct.
And I feel nice about it.
Correct.
Now, if there are families where, if they are the source of your stress, if I can put it that way,
yes.
then, I mean, how do people...
Where do you go?
Exactly.
Where do you go?
Yeah.
So, because if your parents are... Now, also as a society, our nuclear families, we don't have our grandparents to go and sit and spend some time, because just spending some time with them and talking to them also is the biggest healer for you.
Correct.
But now it is like my mom is busy, my dad is busy, right? I have nobody to fall back on, and they're a single child. So when I get back home, I'm alone. When I'm dealing with something, nobody has time to really understand what I'm going through. And that is why in our urban society, even the depression is going in a major way, because people want love. People want a sense of belonging
Yeah,
and an acceptance of who they are.
correct. Because I don't think we even have a helpline or something for mental health,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And also, I'm just talking about Hyderabad alone, where we deal with a lot of cases here. I've seen that there is not major collaborations, because if there is a collaboration between hospitals and mental health experts, right? Collaboration between school and mental health experts or colleges, there's so many suicides that we could actually avoid.
Yeah,
Because if you look at children from the age of 14 to 19, maximum suicide rates happen, right? It's massive if you really look at 11 out of 1 lakh people, at any point of time you see suicides happening. How do we avoid it? As a society, what are we doing about it? Right? So that collaboration and coming together to really take mental health as a very important domain, at any stage, at any age, I think is important. When I can have a 40-year-old coming to me and saying that, I'm depressed.
yeah,
The person may be earning very well, has a job, then why are you depressed? Maybe my relationship is not working. I don't have a compatibility. I don't have friends. I'm too busy making money. I don't have a life of my own. Right? So, if you look at mental health cannot be ignored, because issues crop up at different stages of life and
yeah,
different
absolutely.
ages.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now you said there's a serious dearth of, professionals who can actually help you in terms of
Yeah.
dealing with your mental status. Now, if I were to consider a career in, psychiatry or psychologist, then how lucrative would that be, considering India doesn't really give so much of importance to that?
Yeah, so that is what is important now. If people want to pursue a career, uh, the market is flooded with counselors who are young and budding, but they may not have the depth and experience of dealing with a person.
Yeah,
Because, whether it is a psychiatry or a psychologist, you need to have certain numbers of years of experience, minimum a decade, right, to deal with people, because you're dealing with their lives.
yeah,
And people also have to sensitize and understand that it is not like visiting a general physician. It cannot be like, 700 rupees a visit. You're spending an hour or 90 minutes with a therapist, right, and a counselor. It is very important that you should understand that it is going to be a little expensive. You cannot compare it with physical health doctors.
and you cannot really finish it off in one session, right?
Absolutely. In fact, when clients come to me, I tell them minimum 10, because I'm dealing with a person's mind. And this is something the mind has not developed its patterns right now.
Yeah,
Right? It is like 20 years the person has worked on it. And the impressionable age, if you look at 0 to 7 years, we, as a psychologist, I would say that 96% of their personality is freezed. So if you really look at what happens is, right now I'm dealing with an issue. It's not an issue that I have right now.
it's developed over the
It's
years.
developed over the years, and
Yeah,
the seed was sown 0 to 7 years. So the work that you will have to do is, there's a lot of unlearning that is required. I'll have to dissolve a lot of my behavioral patterns, my emotional responses, and create new life skills.
yeah,
And it cannot happen in a session. You need minimum 3 months. That means once a week the person should come, meet the therapist, spend an hour, tell the therapist what is happening. And then, it's not that when a client comes to me, I finish the session and forget about them. I have a constant follow up with them.
and
Right?
probably the person may not open up, like there are
Correct.
extroverts and introverts, right?
Absolutely.
So you would need a couple of sessions to actually get them to talk about it.
Absolutely. In fact, the first 2 to 3 sessions is for breaking the ice.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are dealing with, issues which they feel very ashamed to share.
Correct. So they may not be
Yeah,
comfortable
they
as
may
well,
not be
right?
comfortable as well, because according to them, they may feel that, hey, my therapist may judge me, right? They may see it as what I'm doing is wrong. So it is very important to create that, environment for them, so that they are able to trust you and share what's happening, which they are not able to do with anybody in their life. So that's very, very crucial, and it takes time. So this process takes time. In fact, I've also seen that people come, they attend 2 sessions and disappear.
Hmm. So what is it? Is it because they feel, I mean, like you spoke about societal stigma, right? Is it because of that the person is seeing a psychologist? Or is it because, they don't want to pay for their mental health? They think they can
Yes,
manage it.
yes, they don't want to pay. So I would say it's a combination of many factors. I think one is societal taboo. The other thing is people don't give too much of importance to mental health services. The third thing is they come for 2 sessions and they say, okay, now I know what's the problem. I
Yeah.
will deal on my own. Now that is the biggest trap. You cannot deal on your own, and you need an expert advice there.
Yeah.
Right? I know the problem, but the solution, you need hand holding. And that is where professionals with a certain level of experience, like if you really look at me, I have invested 20 years of my life. Even now, I study. Even now, I will have to do some courses to really update myself and upskill myself to understand what's happening, what are the new discoveries about human mind.
So if there are cases where, a person is not opening up, you have other tests where you can actually determine.
Yes, we have psychometric tests,
Yeah.
right? And where we actually ask the person to answer a question answer. And we also talk about certain scenarios, how they would deal. So that gives us an indication of their behavioral pattern,
Mm.
right? And what are the challenges that they are facing. It gives us our data for us to analyze about it. But as a therapist, we have our skills to get the information from them. It may take a little longer, but they open up. So the whole process requires patience,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and a client coming to a therapist consistently for a duration till the person thinks I can be on my own.
Mm.
Right? And it is also very important to be committed to it. So, as a society, importance for mental health has to really, really expand, because that importance is not there. And that is where we see that, yes, there are a lot of times when I see certain kids in the families, I know that the kid really need a support of an expert, but they feel that no, it's slightly expensive. I will not say it is very expensive. So if you really look at Rishmi, I have cases who come and they can't afford it all. There are families and they have children who are going through depression, and they come from a very less privileged families, and
Yeah.
we give them absolutely free. Right? That's part of our foundation work. We don't charge them. I don't mind giving 10 sessions for free. But when we look at families who can afford, but still they really don't want to invest in the child's well-being,
Mm.
they're okay to buy a PSP for them, right? Or take them to an expensive holiday abroad, right? But not investing in child.
So it's the wrong priorities, I guess.
Absolutely. So the priorities are completely goofed up, and I don't know, because that shows up later. If not now, 5 years from now, it shows up, because
Yeah,
it's like a
like you
volcano
said,
which erupts.
exactly like you said, if it is not, the adolescent age, if it develops and you just overlook it or
Correct.
whatever, you
And it
later,
spills over to adulthood.
yeah.
And I have to deal with so many things in adulthood. My
So it's
job,
not
my
just mental
relationship.
health, it's
Yeah.
also physically it affects you, right?
Absolutely. So, one very important thing is physical health and emotional health. Both cannot be separated, they go hand in hand. I may be physically fit, but if mentally I am depressed,
Yeah.
right, it's not going to help me. It's not going to make me healthy. And in the same way, If I am mentally not doing well, I will not have any zeal to work on my physical well-being.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
they are completely intertwined. But unfortunately, what we are doing is we're just focusing on physical health, but the source of your physical well-being is your mental well-being. And that's the catalyst. And it's so important to focus on that. And I am really hoping as a society, we are able to create more awareness around it and take it more seriously. Then we would be a less depressed country, because it's really heart-wrenching to have these headlines that India is the most depressed country.
Yeah, because there was a study this year on happiness index, like they measured several parameters and said,
Correct.
and then they said Finland is the happiest
Yes.
country.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think? I mean, how do you really see it? It's not like our country doesn't have anything, right? We have everything that any other country has. So, what is making this country so depressed with the kind of
Yes, because I still feel that we're very conservative in many ways, and mental health, people are conservative. People don't want to come out and talk about it, and that is why, with the changing lifestyle, right? There's so much change that's happening, especially in the family structure, the competitive world, right? Emotional challenges in terms of relationships, right? There's a whole lot of things, because we are also trying to ape Western world.
Yeah, blindly.
Blindly, right? So if you look at a lot of young teenagers and young adolescents, they are into alcohol, they are into drugs, they are into a whole lot of things, and we have people coming to us and say, hey, what do we do with them? So what happens is, yes, the world is changing, India is changing. Yes, there's a conflict between culture and what we are aping. Right? And it is very important as a parent, as a child, or to guide a child what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and spend more time with them. Because even parents are getting very busy.
Yeah.
Right? You have kitty parties, you have, pupping, and you have your own circle of friends. Then children tend to be alone. So we don't know what's happening with them. And the biggest reason, once upon a time, India was called as a place where family is always there. And for any individual, what is important is family. But I think soon that is going to change.
Yeah.
Because families are not available right now for a child. And loneliness, depression, lack of support, non-availability of parents, money has become very important. Because both the parents have to work if I have to maintain a certain lifestyle,
Yeah.
comparing with others.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, you have seen several cases, right? And we are talking about family in these nuclear families and all that. Now, do you think single child syndrome is a major cause
Absolutely.
for depression?
Absolutely, because what happens is, when you have a single child, there's a lot of pampering happens. You're giving materialistically a lot of things. Because when a child gets things very early in their life, everything I have, I don't know what is value for things. I don't know what it means not to have it. I don't know how to earn it.
Right. Yeah.
So if you go look at these international schools, like you get all these affluent kids go to international schools, right? And most of them are depressed. Maximum self-harm cases, depression is happening. Now, the child has everything, but what is the child looking for? Is the child really looking for materialistic things? Parents using materialistic things as a substitute to time with a child is alarming.
Yeah, because they are not around, they just want to give
So
their
they
kids.
just want to keep, okay, you be busy with the PSP, you can play PSP, you can watch TV, you give everything possible under the sky to them. And by the time they are 11, 12, they have everything. So what's the purpose? Why should I study? And what do I need to look forward? So in fact, a lot of youngsters are also dealing with, they don't have the ability to deal with life challenges. Suppose, for example, I failed. I don't know how to deal with it. Because my parents never taught me how to deal with failure.
Right. I mean, he can't accept no for an
Accept
answer.
no for an answer from life,
Yeah.
because life is going to have those ups and downs, and you will have situations where you don't get what you want. But I get everything I want at home. But when I step out into the world, into a school, things are going to be different, and a child is not able to deal stressful situations. And that's also another reason why children are going through a lot of low self-esteem, self-image issues, wanting to be like others. There's so much of aping that is happening, right? Confidence is beaten up. And that ends up in depression because I'm not able to deal with stressful situations. So it is very important for parents also to really teach the life skills.
Yeah.
You don't have to provide them everything. It's okay to get things slowly for them. Let them earn it. Earn it through their behavior, earn it through their studies, right? Earn it through a certain achievement. Let them do something which makes them proud, make the child proud. He should earn it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, do you think bringing some kind of a legislation to include, mental, to have a psychologist for sure in every school and college, would that bring down the level of depression?
Absolutely, absolutely, because it's very, very important to have. I will not say just a psychologist working full time, because there's so many children, right? How would one psychologist take care of so many children?
Yeah.
Some of the schools that I have visited, I see that they have only one psychologist the whole school, right? So it is very important for the school also to have tie-up with experts, right? Who can actually come and talk to the children as to creating an awareness about it, and also have, help parents to find mental health experts. Sometimes parents don't know how to find, they don't know who are the people to whom they should go, right? And I think, schools should have a database and say, okay, these are the experts that you can go and visit and explore if that works out for you.
Yeah, because I'm not even sure schools actually have the time to identify a child, who is deviating
They
from the
come.
norm, because they are
Absolutely.
caught up in the
Hundreds.
rat race, and
Yes.
yeah, they wouldn't even be able to identify.
Yeah.
Suppose there's a hyperactive kid, there's a kid, who is being violent, there's a restless child.
Correct.
They might probably call a parent and say, your kid is creating a lot of,
Yes.
trouble at school. But they may not say he perhaps need some kind of a professional help. Why don't you
Absolutely.
take that,
Absolutely. So recently, something very interesting, one of the known families, their young daughter refused to go to school. Okay. So they changed the school, and she's been put to a different school, and she's just hardly 6 years old. So every day she's going to school and she's crying. She doesn't want to go to school. Now the parents say, my daughter is crying, so I will not send her to school. I said, how can you do that? There has to be a way and approach in dealing with the child to comfort the child. If required, sit outside the school for a few days for her to give that mental comfort. Mom is there.
Yeah.
Till she feels comfortable with the teacher, and then, she can be on her own. So I think that we don't even have the time to do that, Reshmi. Unfortunately, mother has to go to office.
Yeah.
Right? And also these dynamics have changed, mothers being nurturers, mothers seeking employment. I'm not saying that women should not work. Yes, they should, but we are still struggling with that balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are a lot of kids who come back from school and they are on their own till the mother comes back, and the corporate lifestyle, working hours is so long. Sometimes mother is reaching home at 9 o'clock, and after reaching home at 9, she is on calls.
Correct.
US clients.
Yeah.
So the child is waiting till 9, and after she comes back, she's not able to give attention, and the child goes to sleep. So ultimately, when anybody is dealing with mental health, it doesn't happen in a day. It has taken a long for that person to come to that stage. where it is alarming and it needs support.
So even talking about parenting, is it just the mother's responsibility? I mean, you could actually, or you could always divide it, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
the father can also step in and do something about it.
Absolutely. In fact, it has to be a partnership. It cannot be that, yes, it's the woman, she's the mother, so she's the only one who is supposed to take care. If both the parents are working, then they have to really divide their tasks, right? Really keep the well-being of the child as a priority and see what they both can do to really work towards the child's emotional well-being, because a child needs to feel, it's not only a child, it could be an adolescent. Emotional security is what they are looking for.
Yeah. So see, in case of rich parents, people who can afford, they probably have a caretaker, or they would work it out.
That is the worst part, by the way.
Now when you're talking about middle class families,
Yeah.
I mean half the country
population
is
yeah.
middle class. So for them it's more of a monetary compulsion that they have to go out and work.
Yes, that's the thing. But that again is also the priority, what kind of a lifestyle that you want.
Yeah.
Because how much of revenue is being created at the end of the month. So the priorities, whether it is a child or it's a lifestyle or it's the expenditure, how much do you really need and what is important? Because if you really look at families where, yes, there is money, they have a lot of support, that's the worst part, because they give the kids to the helpers and they imbibe the behavioral patterns of the
caretaker. Right. Yeah.
And that's the biggest damage a child can have, because a child is definitely like a wet clay trying to absorb your personality as a mother or a father.
Yeah, I know a child who picked up the local slang from the caretaker, and the parents were really worried. They were alarmed. They're like, "What are you talking?" I mean, they didn't really realize that it could she would even pick up the behavior of the caretaker.
Correct. And that happens, right? And
yeah, it's very natural.
It's very natural, and there is a pros and cons to the whole thing. So we cannot leave the children 100% on caretakers. So we don't know what kind of emotional skills that they are picking up from them, emotional reactions, because we know that children are really observing and learning from them. Yeah.
Right. So what message do you have for the parents?
Yeah, I think the bigger message is observe your children, spend some time, right? If you see there's something which is very different and not normal, right, in their emotional responses, reactions and behaviors, please seek support of mental health expert, because that is the biggest investment that you can provide for your child. Because when they're really growing up and going into adulthood, it can really impact their lives in a very big way. And I think that's very important.
And these adolescents, when they feel pushed and they think, okay, I just want to end my life. I'm like, I've just had it enough. So when a person reaches that point, what do you think should be your first thought to actually push the thought away? Because they say it's a moment of weakness that drives you to do things, right?
Correct.
So that's your weakest moment.
Correct.
You feel.
See, why does a person go to a weakest moment or feel like I need to give up? Right?
See, some decisions are impulsive, some are driven by.
Yes, driven. But all that is because of lack of support. Because I don't have somebody with whom I can share. So if a person is not having a great relationship with parents, right, it is important for them to seek, an expert advice and see what can be done. Because there's also this concept that we provide as family counseling, right, where not only the person who is having a challenge needs to be counseled and provided therapy, but the entire family needs to go through a therapy, because the person has to go back and stay in the same family.
Correct, yeah.
So sometimes it's not just one person alone, but the family itself.
Thanks, Sangeeta.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Rashmi.
Yeah.
Pleasure being here. Right, thanks.